So we'll start the presentation real quick. Today I have with me John Williamson, our VP of Sales for Americas, and we have Ali here. He's our Senior Solution Engineer, and myself. My name is Burak. I'm the Channel Marketing Manager for SoftRadar. And today we'll talk about the art of cybersecurity sales. And this is for any cybersecurity sales professional and for our partners. Tailor's content. Without further ado, we'll start real quick here. If you'll have a question during the session, feel free to use the chat session, Q&A session of the webinar, shoot them out, and we'll be addressing them at the end of the session. And wish you enjoy the session. All right, let's give it a go. John, why don't you kick us off? Thank you very much.
I'll be happy to. Thanks, Burak. And thanks everybody for being here. I hope this is useful. You know, these webinars, we put a lot of energy and thought into them. At the end of the day, though, it's so important that they're useful, that they're informative, that you guys get something out of it. Today's, we've called it the art of cybersecurity sales, these winning strategies and best practices. I thought what I'd do is kind of start, with what this webinar is not, and kind of to level set the playing field. If you are in the cybersecurity business today, your business is booming, you're growing as fast as you can, you got leads coming out of your ears, new prospects are falling at your feet. Obviously, this is your webinar. You should be doing it because that would obviously be great. But what we're trying to do is really talk to everybody who is involved with cybersecurity and give you some of the things that we've seen that do work from a selling perspective. I'd anticipate that a lot of people on this call, you're going to have probably sales engineers, senior executive leaders, probably salespeople on here. Maybe they're product managers, stock analysts. I'm assuming we've got a pretty broad cross-section of attendees just because of the nature of the cybersecurity webinar, series, if you will. But I'll tell you, we really do believe everybody's constantly selling. We're representing our product, we're representing our brand, we're representing ourselves. We're working with prospects, we're engaging with them. And really what this is, we're trying not to make this about, but it's kind of hard for us. We're trying to not make this about SockRadar specifically or exclusively. But we have to say that one of a lot of the principles that we're going to talk about today, the things that we do believe in from a selling perspective, are driven from our passion for the things that we do, the tools that we use, the things that we see. And so I hope that you'll realize that our intent is to provide you some of the things that we've learned, just be benevolent with our ideas, the things that we're using and tools, and hope that it helps you. One of the things we are going to be talking about is how much, and this is really, I think, the backdrop, how much the cybersecurity market is evolving. One of the things that we all joke about, because we've been in the cybersecurity business for quite some time, is how homogenous cybersecurity has become. We joke that there's a new cyber startup every day, and you have 10 seconds, quick, look at their website, tell us what they do, because it all starts to sound very similar. Yet it's a booming market, as we like to say, a lot of money moving and sloshing around in this particular space. New technologies, new tools, new partners are looking for new ways to engage their customers. The key, what we're finding is that it's about enabling a new level of discovery to new threats. It's about, in many ways, the product. And that's why I say it's hard for us not to talk about the product. It's going to be very entangled. Yet we hope that some of these ideas, these concepts, transcend any one particular product and help you understand how we sell and how you might be able to sell cybersecurity more effectively. So who are we and why are we qualified to talk with you? I'll start since I'm already talking. My name is John Williamson. I'm the Vice President of Sales for the Americas for SockRadar. Ali, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everyone again. I'm excited to share insight on the technical aspects and of cybersecurity sales. I don't want to take your time a lot for introducing ourselves, so let's get it started real soon.
Do it. All right. So Burak, you're driving the slide deck. You're our Vanawite.
Yep.
If you want to go ahead and just pull up the first slides. That's what we do.
Yep.
Out of the gate. We'll make this quick, but since we've introduced ourselves, we'll introduce the company we work for.
Yeah.
Are the slides up? I just can't see them.
Yeah.
I trust. We're looking at the.
Yeah.
Is it working? Yep.
I bet it will if I click the right buttons.
We see about
let me see.
our screen right now.
Okay, let me see. Real quick. There we go.
Oh, there it comes. I see it now. Excellent.
Yeah, if you can go to the next one, will be excellent.
Stock radar.
Yeah.
Well, you passed by it. Stock radar is. I will say this about the company, just really briefly.
Okay.
If you haven't heard of Stock radar, I'd like to say that you will very soon. It won't be necessarily from me or from this webinar. We're really proud of what's happening right now. I think we might be the fastest growing cybersecurity company in the world. That's a bold statement. But when you see how quickly we are growing and expanding, you'll realize it's an impressive story. One of the things that we are about is our product, and it's a product-led strategy. It's product-led growth. We are very much in the of the mind of democratizing threat intelligence, is exploring the means to get it to as many people as fast as possible and get into their hands viable enterprise class cybersecurity tools and solutions. And so we provide a free version of our platform. It's being used by, I think, over 25,000 organizations around the globe. We are a partner first organization globally, I think over 400 partners. And our flagship product is something we call extended threat intelligence, and that's what's depicted here on the screen. Essentially, think of it as an advanced warning system against external cybersecurity threats. There is something that many of you may be familiar with called the cyber kill chain. Lockheed Martin, big defense contractor here in the United States, coined this phrase and created this diagram. It essentially talks about the stages of a cyber attack. And on the earliest stages, reconnaissance and weaponization, that's really where SOC Radar lives. We go to where the threat actors are mobilizing threat infrastructure, techniques, procedures, impersonating domains, a whole horde of things. And we provide a warning system to alert our customers of those pending dangers. And that's called XTI. And it's comprised of some suites we're going to talk about a little bit later in this webinar, how we have combined these elements, which you can see in the circle there.
Ali, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I was
Anything you
going to
wanna
say the
say?
same thing actually. Like the reason that we are calling XTI, as you know, like most of the vendors, they don't call it as extended threat intelligence. They call it as CTI, because as you see on the screen right now, we got different models. You can even cover attack surface, digital risk protection, cyber threat intelligence, supply chain intelligence, all in one technology, in one platform. So one platform for all. So that is why we don't call it CTI. We call it extended threat intelligence, which is quite new concept of a threat intelligence platform, so that you can easily manage everything from one platform, which makes you save your time a lot. Because if you have different tools managing from attack surface from another tool, digital risk protection from another tool, so you got to have like a lot of human resources to manage those tools, and you got to have a really huge time to manage each of them, and then check daily basis as well. But since SOC Radar is too user-friendly, you can manage everything at once directly from the platform one. If you can go to the next slide, Brock, will be excellent.
Yep.
If you're not proactive, you're late. Isn't it really good title? Because I love that. So anyone in the cybersecurity space who is paying any level of attention to what's happening related to current and then existential threats recognizes that organizations are increasingly prioritizing the proactive threat detections and intelligence, right? So it is not longer about response. In fact, I might just state this frankly, the mere term managed detection and response is already that, right? It is just that those who are selling through the meaning of those words is living in the past, right? So advanced analytics are taking cybersecurity on the further level and of the cyber kill chain, like looking into the future, anticipating and mitigating the threats before they ever materializing. And then so that is why we call it early warning system, proactive security. Because why are we still waiting until the attackers coming in, right? We should actually detect them before, so that we can easily have enough time to get ready ourselves before something happens, before they coming in, right? Because as you know, when it comes to the cybersec, the timing is the most critical part, right? The managing the time is the biggest issue that we are having and facing in this sector. So that is why if you can detect them before something happens, so that you can actually get yourself ready against them, and actually once they are there, you're going to be already ready for that. So you're not going to have any stress it out, or you're not going to have any timing issues on that as well. So I would like to talk about the cybersecurity alignment. If you can go to the next slide, blog, that will be awesome.
Before we do that, I want to hear from John as a sales leader.
Yeah, for sure.
What he understands from not proactive.
What's the sales guy got to say about all this?
Yeah. What do you got to say about that?
This is interesting because I've been selling in the cyber intelligence space. Let's just call it that, for quite some time. And I remember the early days we were doing, I say early days, this is funny, like in the last few years, as I've really started to understand the dark web, understand how it's utilized by threat actors, the types of communication that occurs there, the types of things that are sold and brokered and bartered for there. And, it's interesting, when we first started illuminating that data, it was a treasure trove of information, but the earliest stages were, okay, this is great. It's a lot. It seems scary. I'm not sure what to do with this. There's mentions of this, or I noticed that. Is this an old, or is this a new credential? Is this even is this a current employee, or is it a past employee? Is this a contractor? It was hard to detect. And I think, as Ali was stating about this new proactive look, what's happened is we've been able to evolve very quickly to be able to see, we can now tell the risk signals very early. We know the types of things threat actors are doing, saying, brokering, selling on the dark web, and in some cases the clear web, how they're impersonating domains, how they're using and setting up phishing infrastructure. It turns out we can now use advanced intelligence to start seeing these things emerge early, and we can actually tell who's being targeted. So the idea being is proactive is the new version of cybersecurity, in the sense that you're going to the root genesis, if you will, of a lot of these threat vectors. And that's a really important point. And I think that's what we're talking about, is this whole idea of next level, digital mapping, not just with regards to your footprint, but mapping in terms of risk that might be the signals that might be coming out of places like the dark web.
Exactly, John. That's what I wanted to hear. Let's move on. Got it.
From sales guy.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity alignment, it is also really important, because there are a lot of selling proactive solutions aligned to cybersecurity maturity, right? So I would like to point 4 different items here, which we already provide at the beginning: dark web monitoring, basic. Every business for all size and maturity must have it, right? Because if you don't have any solution for dark web monitoring, you never know what's going on there, right? Maybe there is a really, really sensitive data related to your company in the dark web, but you never know, right? Second is brand protection, taking the dark web monitoring up a notch, including domain impersonations, phishing, rogue mobile apps, and lots of other dirty tricks, right? The reason that I'm talking about the brand protection, because our brand is everything for us, right? Our logo is everything for us. So that is why one thing that you should have is brand protection also, in terms of a digital risk protection. Because if you don't cover your brand protection, that means you're going to have phishing attacks. Maybe you're going to have phishing campaigns or rogue mobile apps that are trying to impersonate your apps as well. Impersonation. So now, that is why I'm trying to say, now cybersecurity sector is quite different than before, right? Everything is changing, technology is changing, artificial intelligence coming up, and that is why brand protection is becoming more important than before. So that is why we should have something to monitor those things as well. Third one is CTI, upping your customers game, like the cybersecurity pro toolkit, and then vulnerability intelligence, like threat feeds, IOCs, malware analyzers, threat hunting rules, threat actor intelligence, and more, right? Because, okay, I already know what's going on, what's going to happen, but if you don't implement the feeds IOCs, or implement this Sigma rules or Viera rules to your existing solution, there's no point, right? So one thing that you should know, what's going on, what's going to happen in the future. And the second thing, you should take the action really quick while using the IOCs or threat hunting rules as well. What about the fourth one? Attack surface management. At the beginning, as I mentioned before, next level digital mapping and the threat correlation, like shadow ITs, like cloud buckets, open and critical ports. network system vulnerabilities, which is the most critical part when it comes to the attack surface, and let's say SS certification expiration date. This kind of thing is also really important. And then every company's up, the business for all size and maturity must have it also. So I would like to leave the microphone to John to talk about the cybersecurity alignment, selling the practice solutions aligned to the cybersecurity maturity. Based on as a sales guy, if you can mention a few points so that we can easily move forward in the next step.
I could tell I'm going to get this all day. I'm the token sales guy. No, I'm teasing. I absolutely, it's the whole point of this, and I enjoy it. The way Ali lined these up, I think, is so important. The structure of how he's lined it up is, dark web, brand protection, CTI, SM. The reason I think that's important from a selling perspective is I think that actually is the ladders of the cybersecurity maturity inside of any business organization that you're selling into. Meaning, dark web monitoring should be a commodity at this point. Everybody should monitor for the dark web. It should be for mentions simply. It's something that you should be part of every threat detection system. It should be part of every cybersecurity program. That's why it's kind of the foundational building block. It's one of the reasons SOC Radar, has made it so inexpensive, because it's really kind of it should be in every business, just like it used to be a phone. Now it's PCs and other smart devices. As you move up, you can see the levels of sophistication. You go beyond the dark web, you go into the clear web, you start looking for domain impersonations. Are we being phished? Does somebody set up a domain that looks suspiciously like ours and it's got an MX record associated, with it? Are mobile apps are there rogue apps that aren't ours that are for sale in some of these marketplaces? And then as you move up through the sophistication level, you get into upping your game, looking at kind of a pro toolkit we want to do more vulnerability intelligence. We want to do threat and IOC feeds. We want to do IOC enrichment. We want to do sandboxing and malware analysis, to the highest level, which is ASM, which is really digitally mapping all of your existing footprint, that everything that a threat actor, a hacker, could see from the internet. And a lot of times those are things that even detect some of the most sophisticated organizations. They have what they call shadow IT. And so that's kind of how they round out part of their program. So I would say that this stack is kind of where you start and where you end, depending on the level of maturity within the prospect that you're talking to.
Sounds good. Thank you, John.
And then this one, I'll lead this one. This supply chain issue. I tell you what, when it comes to selling cybersecurity services, it might be this is the most, and this kind of occurs kind of somewhere in the middle of our webinar, but I'll state this might be one of the most interesting, provocative, and highly charged areas of cybersecurity and selling cybersecurity. It's really becoming clear that the whole analogy that we've all used for many years, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, is never more true than it is in cybersecurity. It's used to be, it's all about me, hide, harden, protect, respond, me. It's really becoming about, I'm part of a ecosystem that is intrinsically and digitally completely interconnected. And my threats are their threats, and their threats are my threats. As a matter of fact, SOC Radar has found, just in the process of our own cyber threat intelligence research, about a quarter of all ransomware attacks came from what we call obtuse angles, which is essentially supply chain or a third-party vendor was compromised, which led to the compromise of one of their partners. Think of it as like a ricochet, off of the business, and kind of shrapnel and assets and digital assets, that is, or fly all over the place. So really talking about a business beyond its borders, beyond its own hardened perimeter, talking about the threats to their ecosystem is becoming really important. And you want to be thinking about, in your own selling of cybersecurity, what tools do you have in your toolkit to enable or illuminate those threats? I wrote down a few things here that I want to mention. You want to look at global trends by sector. You want to look at threat actors, which threat actors are attacking, or at least very active ATPs in which vertical industries. Score your third parties. There's a lot of mechanisms and ways that you can now get information about your third parties, and you can also rank them. You can put them into tier groups, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. and be able to provide levels of scrutiny based on how much information you're sharing with them, how important they are to your day-to-day operations, and making sure that your supply chain is as strong as you are. And we're doing a lot more work in this with regards to one of the modules we've recently launched in the platform. But I want to kind of hearken, this is something that everybody ought to be paying attention to. What do you think, Ali?
You know what, John? You used to have a really good point because, most of the companies working with different vendors, right? And then you have to work with different vendors. Even you secure yourself a lot, sometimes another vendor, let's say you're working with Microsoft, and then it is kind of impossible, but let's imagine that Microsoft get hacked. We never know, right? It is a cybersecurity sector. So if they get hacked, that means your data can get hacked. So it's going to affect your company as well. So since you guys working each other, you're sharing your data with each other. Once something happens to other company that you're working with, it's going to affect your company as well. So that is why it's really important to have some supply chain intelligence module that you can easily monitor the vendors that you're working with to be able to know their cyber risk level, cyber exposure level, different dark web threats.
Yeah.
Let's say how many breaches, how many leakages that they have. Maybe like some of the breaches are related to your company. We never know since you guys sharing your data with each other. So that is why it is really important to monitor those vendors, even if you believe the vendor that you're working with is too secure, but we never know what's going on, right? As you know, like a couple years ago, as you remember, what happened to Uber. Uber is a really huge company, right? But something happens in this sector, we never know who's going to get hacked, who's going to get leakage. So that is why, even they're a really huge company, we should have something to monitor those vendors to secure ourselves. And then, like sometimes if you decided to work with a company, before you make your decision, you gotta search and investigate their company while using supply chain intelligence module as well to be able to see the number of stealer logs that they have, number of breach data sets, exposed raw data. So based on those numbers, so that you can easily make your decision. Are you going to sign the agreement or you're changing your mind? So that is why it is really important.
Yeah, and especially in
Excellent.
selling, when you're selling as well. I mean, one of the it's almost cliche is tell me something I don't know, right? You
Yeah.
want to go into, and this is kind of a great way as you're having conversations with your customers. This is something they don't know. How vulnerable are my supply chain vendors and my partners with whom I sell sensitive and information, a PII or other things, and being able to illuminate those things to them is a really valuable use case for cyber threat intelligence. And so that's something I think as well is a really important part of kind of the conversation today with cybersecurity leaders.
Excellent. Yeah. So if it's not useful, what is the point? If it's not clear, who has the time? So yeah, it is really good sentence and a really good start for empathetic selling, usable and support. Because if you cannot understand your customers, then doesn't make sense, right? It is about empathy for your customers, making products that produce unproductive noise and then chatter may make you think that they are making your clients think they are working and it's nothing but from a card trickery, right? Like a diversionary slide of the best, right? But what is it really about? This is tone defensiveness to their daily lives, a lack of empathy. So you don't control product design, then what? So then you better have the services to back up those products and then what are you selling? Tell a story about the best sales people I've come across in career in sales, right? I need to talk about it because if you cannot put yourself, if you cannot do the empathy of your customer so that you cannot sell anything. Because if you focus on only the sales part, which is Jean's part, no, never do that. Talk about the customer's requirements, talk about the customer needs, their pain points, use cases that they have. So that is why once you focus on this point, you're going to serve or offer the best solution for their pains according to your use cases. Yeah, John, do you have any comment on empathetic selling or usability and support to the
Oh
customer?
yeah, I really do. This one is near and dear to my heart as a sales
Yeah.
professional. One of the things I do obviously is hire and build teams of account managers, account executives, inside salespeople. the technical people that support them. And I'm often interviewing, and I'm often, find myself really trying to evaluate talent, what really works. And this is something for all the people on this call that are thinking about not just a career in cybersecurity sales. I'm talking about just talking to customers, being a valuable resource for them. I'm often asked, what's the most important single attribute of the best salespeople you've ever been around? And every time you go and I think about that, I think about some people that have been extremely successful in cybersecurity selling. And the one attribute they have is empathy, because empathy drives so many valuable traits beyond simply being a good listener. It's about understanding your customer's need. It's about really being able to get to the heart of what their pain points are. It's about really understanding, the intricacies of not just, the obvious things that you might find in an RFP, but what are the things that are affecting them personally? What are the things that what are the pressures that they're feeling internally? Who all is involved with the decision-making process, and how do they need to be handled in order to help your champion get the most out of the process and the most out of the product and services. So I do think my experience has been that the most empathetic people are those that work the best with cybersecurity leaders.
Excellent.
Which there you go. That's a pretty nice transition. Thanks, Barack.
Yeah.
Thanks for the layup. I forgot that slide was next.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Transparency and trust. So this is where you have to gauge. I would assume that a lot of people on this call, if you've come to this webinar, you're either in sales, like I said, you're in a channel partner, you're an MSSP, could be any variant of the role, responsibilities, technical background, sales background, you name it. I will say this to across the board. And I think it's interesting. I think technical people, the Alis of the world, are more likely to realize the power of this, is that transparency about your solutions and capabilities, and importantly, its limitations, its data handling capabilities and processes, is paramount. It sets you apart. It is about you're leading a process. Somebody has a problem, you come to them and you're trying to engage, understand what that problem is. You're trying to understand what the basic elements of that problem are, how it needs to be solved, and what you can do, what your products might do to help provide or ease the pain related to that challenge. And as you go through that process, being transparent proves that you have the client's best interest at heart, that you are there to serve their needs. You're not trying to make a quota. You're not trying to sell a big deal. You're not trying to pound, margin. You are trying to solve a problem. And I think part of that is being transparent, but ultimately where this leads to is building a trusted relationship. Trusted relationships are something that could last, a lifetime. And I know that sounds obviously overly dramatic, but it's really true. A lot of great salespeople that I know, clients, when they hear that they've gone to another cybersecurity company, will actually follow them. They won't necessarily always buy from them. Certainly, what they do is they trust them as resources. And I hear this all the time from our own guys. They'll get calls from former clients saying, "Hey, I see you guys. See you took a job at Stock Radar. What's going on over there? Give me a sense for what you guys do," because they trust them. And that's a big part, I think, of selling cybersecurity. If your product falls short in certain features, it doesn't do everything. It's not the Swiss Army knife of cybersecurity. Just tell them. Be honest about it. Say, you know what, we don't do those things. I'll tell you what the things we do, and you can enhance and, kind of very carefully place the value on the things you do really well. We call them the winning zone features. These are the things that your product or your service does better than anybody else. And you really believe that, accentuate those. But if you do fall short in other areas, don't lie, because what will end up happening is you're just going to undermine that transparency and that trust. And that's ultimately going to be harder for you to sell.
Right on,
Yeah,
John. Ali, any comments
Ah.
as a technical person? I think
Yeah.
it might be. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, John's comment, because if you can build that relationship, nothing is impossible, right? Because sometimes I see like many sales and the technical pre-sales engineers, they're okay focusing on the customer's requirements or needs, but sometimes even the customer needs, let's say, dark web monitoring, and the sales guy doesn't have any such like solution for dark web monitoring, but they're trying to say, yes, we do this kind of things to monitor dark web, even if they don't do. But in other way, if you tell them, hey, we don't have such monitoring system, but instead we do attack surface management to monitor your digital assets. Even they don't need any attack surface management solution for now, but if you can build that trust, connection or relationship between each other, so even one day, if they need attack surface management, they're going to contact you directly because you already built that relationship before, right? But if you lie to them, of course, they're going to purchase your platform, but maybe only for 1 year, because they're not going to renew that, because you're going to tell them, hey, we do that, but they're going to be able to see that you're not able to do that service in your platform. So in this case, the trust relationship will not be happened. Instead, as I said just before, instead of this, it is better to talk about what you exactly do on your services. So in this case, even if they don't need any solution that you guys have, but in the future, once they need it, they're going to contact you because you're going to have some relationship between each other. So that is why it is really, really important. And I couldn't agree more than John as well.
Thanks, Ali.
Excellent.
My pleasure.
So this is one that I
John,
thought,
this goes out to you.
yeah, I won't belabor this one because I think there's part of this slide is the content for a whole nother webinar. But I thought I would mention it because it fits so well with some of the concepts of transparency, empathy, trust, building that trusted relationship. Selling cybersecurity services obviously requires a very strong value proposition. Effectively selling means believing in that. Effectively selling is believing in what your product does and its ability to solve the problem. And the underlying nature of this, obviously, is you have to understand your product. One of the things that we do here at SocRadar, which I'm both, I always wary because when I see the next test come across my desk, I always get a little bit nervous. But SocRadar is really adamant about driving deep knowledge of the products amongst everybody in the organization. Every single person, regardless of role, has to take some fairly intensive cybersecurity training, what we call the SocRadar Academy. It's this online, survey-based training, and it's intimidating. I've had some of Ali's peers here in North America. One of the sales engineers called me recently after one of them. He said, "How are you guys doing with this latest one?" And I said, it's something else. We're kind of grinding through it." And he says, "Yeah, I figured you would because some of these are hard for me to answer." But it underscores that's the principle. You really, if you're going to effectively understand and be able to present a strong value proposition, you need to really understand the customer's problem and your products. You can't just wing it. And so I think that's a big part of it. One of the things that's almost cliche is, they talk about the value of storytelling and selling. That's really what use cases are. It's not just a reference point. Oh, do you work with other credit unions? Check. Oh, you guys, looks like you find breached credentials on Telegram and you monitor over 400 channels. Check. Yeah, those things are great in terms of, blandly stated features. But more importantly, they're stories. Let me tell you about this story. We worked with a credit union, and it turns out we were going through the process of what we call our POC. We let them into the platform, all with every bell and whistle. We let them just try with full tractor beam mode. And during the POC, we're going through doing the setup and showing them how some of these work. And one of our threat analysts found some credentials for sale on a black market. And together we looked at it and we realized this is actually a current employee. It's somebody in a position of administrative power. And these were active credentials. In addition to those, it was the browser session history, the tokens associated with it. They even had authentication tokens for third party for multi-factor authentication. We're able to find these things, and actually, it turns out we decided to go ahead and just quickly acquire those assets for them using Bitcoin. Went out, got them off of a Russian black market, delivered back to them. They were able to quickly remediate that threat, and it was really an amazing moment because they realized we never had a problem. This cost us $10, because essentially the cost of what it was to buy the credentials off this Russian black market, and we've potentially prevented a serious data breach or worse. So those are the kinds of things, tell stories. Those are what those use cases are. It's just about saying, hey, we understand. Let me tell you about how we solved a problem for somebody else. You might find this interesting and maybe help you better understand what we do. So those kinds of use cases are really about storytelling. And then the last part is what I call MEDPIC: metrics, economic buyer, decision criteria, decision process, paper process, champion, competitors, and so forth. This is if anybody wants, like I said, this is a whole nother webinar, but I do have training on this if anybody's really interested, wants to be bored to death. But this is a methodology that we utilize that helps us to make sure that we just have all of our boxes checked. When we go into any selling situation, we have certain things that we know we've got a limited number of at-bats. We've got a discovery call, we've got a follow-up call, we may have a POC discussion and a POC kickoff, mid-POC check-in, POC wrap-up, and then, whatever calls. Sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 10. But with each impression, what we try to do is optimize the amount of information that we can get to understand the customer's position. And that's what MEDPIC is. If anybody's not heard of it, I would encourage anybody that's interested in selling anything, but it's particularly valuable, I think, in cybersecurity or complex selling, SaaS platforms in particular, something called MEDPIC, as that's something we use to sell cybersecurity.
Yeah, I
Thanks,
couldn't
John.
agree more. Because as you mentioned, I mean, you're a professional for how to sell like cybersecurity services, but I have like a few points here that I would like to mention because yeah, even like people are feeling, even they are like in the sales field, they need to know, they need to be familiar with some cybersecurity fields, right? Because if you're not familiar with the sector, you're not able to sell the platform. You're not able to sell any solution that you're offering, right? So that is why you should know like a few points of threat intelligence, what it does. You should know what is the firewall or any other solutions, what is it for, or this kind of things to be able to offer the solution that you guys are offering, right? And then the good thing here, then the most important part, as far as I know, humans, like everybody loves attention, right? So that is why if you care about the customer, if you can get contact with them, like if you don't leave them with the POC itself, everything will be okay. Because otherwise, they're gonna feel like alone, and then they're gonna feel like, okay, even I purchase the platform, if I need anything from that company, from that solution, they're not gonna care about me. So that is why always like after demo, they're gonna start POC, right? Keep talking with it, keep in touch. Like ask them how the POC is running, how you like the platform. Do you guys have any feedbacks, even negative? Like open for negative feedbacks as well, because these negative feedbacks are feeding yourself to fill the gaps, right? To improve yourself, to offer the best service to your client. So that is why it is really important to understand their needs, first of all, but of course, always keep in touch with them. Never leave them alone, and contact with pre-sales activities in during the POC, and then after POC, try to arrange different kind of meetings to be able to have good relationship. Because if you don't have any good relationship with each other, you're not able to sell the platform that you're offering, even if it does really good success stories on that business as well.
Thanks, Ali.
My pleasure, Brock.
Here, do we have the time to go over the platform? Do we want to do that? Do we want to test my Socrates platform skills?
Why
Put
not?
him
Let's
on
do
the
that real
spot.
quick.
Make
Okay.
him work for it.
Okay.
Make him work for it.
I feel like
let's do that.
everybody loves to see the platform. That's why everybody's here, right?
Okay. Okay, we're here.
Yeah.
Can you guys see the screen, see the platform, right?
That's perfect.
Yes,
Yeah. All
looks
right. We are
really
here.
good platform. I never seen that.
We'll test my platform skills here real quick as a marketing person. Here we go. We're at the attack surface management. Take it away, Ali.
Okay, then. Yeah, we're going to talk about the strategies for selling attack surface, digital risk, and the CTI. So starting from attack surface management, selling attack surface management involves like highlighting the importance of continuous monitoring and the management for all potential entry points, right? Emphasize how attack surface management helps in proactively the identifying vulnerabilities before attackers do. So that is why we're talking about early warning system. That's why we are talking about the proactive security. Use examples where attack surface management helped the clients discover unknown assets and the vulnerabilities. For instance, one of our clients identified shadow IT devices that were previously unknown or unsecure. Explain how attack surface management integrates with the other security measures to provide a comprehensive security posture, right? As you see on the screen right now, you'll see the asset types on the right side hand. And when it comes to the domain, it is better to talk about vulnerabilities, give them some examples from domain's perspective. When it comes to the IP address, give them some examples about open port, critical port, because if you can let them know what's going to happen if you leave the open ports, critical ports behind of those IP addresses will be really, really critical. So if you can let them know, if don't close the platform, the port, which is open, this is going to be happen. When it comes to the SS certificate, you can give them some examples about expiration date of SS certification. Hey, what we do here, we let you know once it's about to expire so that you can easily renew it before it ends. But if you don't renew that, if the attacker finds that cybersecurity is, let's say, SS certificate is expired already, that they can even use that way to be able to attack you. What about the cloud buckets? As you know, like now, most of the companies they start using clouds, but at the same time, they're leaving a lot of sensitive data's public instead private, right? Those data can be really sensitive as well. Tell them, hey, if it's public, that means everybody can reach that information. And then if the attackers can reach that information, even they can even use that way to be able to attack you. So that is why it is really good alarm system that is letting you know if there is any cloud buckets needs to be private instead public, so that you can easily make it private really quick. What about the vulnerabilities? As I said just before, when it comes to the attack surface management, the vulnerabilities is the key point to mention, hey, this vulnerability is affecting your product and you need to take the action really quick before something happens. You need to upgrade your versions before somebody does or somebody attacks you, right? And then, as you know, there are kind of like many kind of vulnerabilities, like CSAQ vulnerabilities, ransomware vulnerabilities. So that is why it is really important to know where the problem is. If there is any vulnerability on the ransomware check part, that means if you don't upgrade your version, you may have some ransomware attacks. The same thing for other ones as well. So that is why it is really, really important when it comes to the attack surface management. So Jean, do you have any comment on attack surface management sales perspective?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting comment on the web chat while you were talking. I thought it was a good one. It said how to reduce noise on the platform. This is, we'll talk about live fire objections handling. Not necessarily very specific to SOC Radar, obviously, but I think, generally speaking, in SOC Radar's case, we use a combination of automated technology and human intelligence. That combination is really important because it's just one of those things you cannot solve this problem exclusive with humans. What we are really good is discovery, using just basically an IP. And the default is to reduce false positives to a minimum level, if not completely reduce. There's also a lot of self-tuning features. You can quickly, just with a mouse click, mark things as false positives. You can categorically apply those to certain features as well. But it's noise is obviously the enemy, because again, it goes back to empathy. One of the things we know that we're dealing with is cybersecurity professionals, SOC analysts, those that work in those fields are generally very, very busy people that have a lot on their plate and they're trying to solve a lot of problems. So introducing a noisy system that's constantly screaming, look at me, look at me, look at me, is not a recipe for success. And so it's a very good question. Reducing it to the minimal, if not complete reduction of false positives is a vital concern.
Yeah, excellent.
That's one of the nice things too about trying the kind of what we call the correlated external threat intelligence. By being able to correlate the digital footprint, IP addresses, all the different technologies, SSL certificates, domains, obviously subdomains, related domains, with signal from cyber threat intelligence, dark web, brand protection as well. Being able to put those together also really helps us to define what's a real hit or a critical alert and a false positive.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So let's focus on digital risk protection part as well. I'm sure that everybody excited about digital risk protection a lot since everything happens on like brand protection, dark web monitoring. And as you know, like DRP focusing on protecting digital assets beyond the traditional network parameters, right? And then highlight the how DRP helps in monitoring and mitigating risk from social media, deep in dark web, and then external threats. And you can even share some success stories where DRP helped the clients detect and prevent phishing attacks, brand impersonations, or data leakages. For example, we have the client mitigated phishing campaigns and targeting their customer. So in this case, that they can easily take the action really quick before it happens, right? And you can even discuss the value of the proactive threat hunting and the risk mitigation to prevent the damage before it occurs as well. As you see on the screen right now, it starts from dark web monitoring. We got black market monitoring system where we can see if there is any data in the black market, in the Russian market, Genesis market for sale that related to customers, so that we can easily let them know, hey, there is a sensitive data which is related to your company and you need to take the action really quick. What is the action here? Purchasing the data. Because if you don't purchase the data, maybe some attacker can purchase that data instead of you, and that they can even know your sensitive data while using that way to be able to attack you, let's say. So instead, we need to purchase the data before attackers do. So in this case, we're going to have our data back, and then we're going to ensure that that data is not available in the market anymore. What about the employee's credentials, which is happening on PI exposure? Because we never know, since everybody using the same domain, once if there is any employee credential leak, it is also affecting your company itself, right? So you can actually contact the relevant guy, let's say who got the leakage, ABC guy. So you can contact the relevant guy to be able to make sure if the data or the password is still available or not. If it is, then you need to force them to change their password. This is also kind of early warning system, right? And then the same process on instant messaging content. I'm pretty sure everybody heard about Telegram channels, Discord, ICQ channels, where the attackers talking about their tactics, their plans. And then imagine that they are talking about your company. What's going to happen then? If they're talking about your company, that means they're planning to attack you in coming days, right? But if you know the details of the conversation, then you can actually get ready yourself against those attackers before it happens. This is also part of the dark web monitoring and the early warning system. What if we talk about the brand protection of the impersonation of phishing domains or impersonating domains, let's say? And then the good thing, if you know the impersonating domain or the phishing domain that is trying to impersonating you, that wouldn't be enough, right? You should also take the action to make it down. So that is why takedown processes are becoming really, really critical than before. Even if you know that that impersonating domain is trying to impersonating you, but if you take the action, that makes sense. But if you don't, that means they're still available to attack you or to affect your company. So that is why, of course, monitoring and the detection of the impersonating domains is really important. But at the same time, you should have some takedown capability. And then I'm always saying the same thing. Having own takedown team, which makes the process easier. So that is why, thanks to our takedown team, which is integrated to our company, which makes the process easier, we handle the takedown process, impersonating domain on rogue mobile apps, impersonating social media accounts, and blah, blah, blah. And when it comes to the social media part, I mean, like everything happens on social media. Like, you know what? Even my grandmother, she's 85 years old and she's still using Facebook and Instagram somehow. I don't know what's going on, but world is changing a lot, which means everything happens on social media. It is also affecting cybersec, right? So that is why you should have some monitoring system or impersonating accounts on social media perspective. If there is any account that is trying to impersonating you, let's start takedown process really quick to be able to make it unavailable, and then you can actually block them to affect your company really quick. And then same process for the VIPs. Like if there is any like C-levels leakages, that you can easily force them to change their password, as we did on PI exposure as well, or source web monitoring for GitHub and GitLab repositories. If there is any source code leakage, then we're going to detect that, but we're going to also help you to take it down, which is really, really important. So I would like to leave the floor to John. I'm pretty sure he also has some comments on digital risk protection, because it is also a really good point when it comes to the how to sell cybersecurity services?
Yeah, DRP, as we call it, or more broadly as brand protection, it's probably one of, if not the most popular of our service solutions that we provide. XTI is what we call everything, but brand protection, if you're thinking about selling cybersecurity services, this one is really important because it covers such a broad swath of external risk. It's everything from impersonating domains to phishing infrastructure. These are things that we can detect that are directly related or targeting a particular company. You should be looking at your own tool sets and looking for how you can leverage cybersecurity. The other thing too about digital risk is it goes into surface web elements such as, Ali mentioned Facebook, LinkedIn, other Instagram. There's very common for your customers to find there are these impersonating accounts, whether they're impersonating VIPs, they're impersonating brands. This is something you ought to be highlighting because it's something that every company is generally very surprised by because these things go undetected for so long and then obviously can be utilized as what we call threat actor infrastructure. And even things like code leakages, going into things like GitHub repositories. Those are all part of the overall scope of brand protection. So those are things that as we think about selling cybersecurity, those are things that are really resonating right now and that people are really responding to. And that's probably my two bits on selling digital risk.
What
Thanks, John.
about
Ali,
CTI?
anything else on the platform?
Yeah, so CTI also really important,
Okay.
especially when it comes to lead generation. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
every yeah, because you know what? Still logs. It's always important for every kind of services, right?
Yeah.
So that is why cyber threat intelligence is really important because cyber threat intelligence provides actionable insights into the potential threats. You can also explain how CTI helps organizations stay ahead of emerging threats by providing real-time intelligence. But if you would like to take their attention for your other services, this is also really important to have threat hunting because threat hunting is really important for every kind of solutions. And then you can always use examples of how CTI has been used to prevent targeted attacks. For instance, like our CTI service helped a client identify and block and sophisticated spares phishing campaigns. But you can also tell them, hey, there is a still a log regarding the one of the employee of the client, potential client, let's say, and then that is still a log related to the firewall's credentials, which is really critical because if they can access to your firewall by using this password or this credential will be really critical for their organizations. That's what I'm trying to say. Cyber threat is always important for every kind of technologies. And then supply chain intelligence also, like you can even emphasize the importance of understanding the security posture of third-party vendors. We already talked about those cases, even like use cases like studies where supply chain intelligence helped to prevent breaches or originated from third-party vulnerabilities and blah blah blah. But the thing is that if we can go back to the cyber threat intelligence, we already talked about the threat hunting, but we also need to talk about tactical intelligence where we can see only under cyber threat intelligence. Because as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting today, feeds IOCs, threat hunting rules. When it comes to the tactical intelligence, it is better to talk about integrations capabilities because, like people are always tired of using millions of tools, right? So that is why integration is really important. If you can integrate every solution that you have in your environment so that you can easily manage everything from one point. So that is why threat feeds IOCs, a threat hunting rules, where we can integrate with your SIEM and SOAR solution or EDR firewall solution, where we can feed those solutions by using Socrator platform. You can always read about the news, dark web news. And then the good part here, once you go to the dark web news, you can even filter by country, by industry base as well. And then it is really helpful. Imagine that I'm going to take the one of the potential customer, which is in the banking industry in United States. So what I'm going to do, I need to put country as United States, and I would like to put the industry, banking or financial, what it is, it doesn't matter. So in this case, we're going to have some results regarding that. So in this case, with these results, I can even take their attention, all right? Because if you don't have any results, any report with you, you cannot even take their attention. They're going to say, okay, one day we hope we can purchase your platform, but one day, when? So that is why we should have some results, some reports with us to take their attention real quick. When it comes to the operational intelligence, where we can talk about the threat actors intelligence, ransomware groups, because if you know what attackers do, what the TTPs are, what the tactics are, so that you can easily know what's going on. Burak, if you can go to the operational intelligence and if you can click the threat actor intelligence part, and you can even see target country as United States, so that you can be aware of who's actively working for this country, right? For instance, Hunters International or Muddy Water or Just Evil. If you can click any of them, you're gonna be able to see the TTPs, what the tactics are. You're gonna be more familiar with those attackers. And then you know what? You see the red button there, the subscription button. Once you subscribe any threat actor, even if they drink water, we'll let you know about it. So which makes it stay ahead, right? You need to know what's going on, what the behaviors are, what the tactics are, what's going on, what's the recent activities that the attackers doing, and then this kind of things. And I'm pretty sure Jean has a lot of comments on CTI part, because as I said just before, CTI is not only for CTI. CTI is for every cybersecurity technology.
Absolutely. You've done a
But
great
before
job.
we
And
do that,
what I'm
we are
going to
in the
do.
1 hour rant right now. Yeah, clock.
Oh,
It's all right. I'll let you guys have a bit more
we'll
fun.
finish. We'll wrap it up. I do want to address a question that came on the chat just real quickly, because I want to hit that. I appreciate those questions. Basically, it says, so target approach, empathy, understanding what the head of IT actually needs from different modules is a good way to go. That's absolutely right. As a matter of fact, one of the things that in effectively selling cybersecurity solutions is try to get out of featureitis and just talking about what the product does. A lot of times the discovery process, when you sit down with a customer, the last thing to come in the conversation is the platform demo or the products. What comes before that, and we talk about the empathy, the trust, and the building that relationship. Try to find out what, I'll go to the basis of any cybersecurity sales call. Why did they even agree to the meeting? Let them do the talking. And a lot of times the use cases, to the point of the question from Goresh, was very specifically, it may be a single module solves their problem. It may be a combination of two of the modules, but things like, listening. Is this about, did you take the call because you are, think you may have some shadow IT that's unprotected, and you've learned about this recently through some scanning mechanism? Maybe you had a penetration test done. You're concerned about making sure that doesn't occur again. Is it a misconfigured network? Is that what drove this discussion? Is it a phishing attack? Is it one of your VIPs was recently targeted? Are you looking for a solution that helps enrich your existing incident management platform, your SIEM, your SOAR? Are you in the process of looking at some cyber forensics tools? The point is all of those questions, the answer to those questions are what would drive, I think we can solve that problem. Let me show you what we can do specifically. So a lot of times, don't lead with the product, lead with the empathy, lead with trying to understand what the problem is, what are the things they're trying to solve, then plug them into solutions. Says, does this, if we could do something like this, is this what you're looking for? That's really, I think, the answer to your question is yes, listen carefully, solve problems. Sometimes that's one module, sometimes that's one of the products in your portfolio. It might be a combination, but just solve the problem.
And then listening carefully, it's also related to the next part of the slide, which is understanding customer requirements. If we can go back to the slide, Burak, that will be awesome. Because understanding customer requirements is really, really important when it comes to how to sell cybersecurity services. Because to understand the customer requirement, you need to contact through the discovery meetings, assess the client's current security posture by providing like questions about their industry, regulatory environment, and specific concerns. For example, like ask them about their current security measures and any past incident that they have faced, perform a gap analysis to identify the differences between their current state and their desired security level. And this approach helps you tailor your solution to meet their specific needs, right? And sometimes, what I do, I ask the customer, the first question that I ask to customer, what brings you here? And after this question, they start explanation of the pain points. They are talking about their pain points. So based on that, their answers, so that you can easily manage your demonstration meeting, right? You can only focus on their needs, instead talking about every solution that you have. Because if they're only having issues with the dark web monitoring, there is no point to talk about attack surface management. If you talk about attack surface management, when it comes to the dark web monitoring, they are not going to be interested in your demo. So because time is really critical, and then as you know, after 10 minutes, their mind is going away. So that is why it is really important to keep them in the demo, keep taking their attention to talk about only their needs and their pain points as well. Do you have
Well
any
put.
comments there, Mia?
I think we very briefly talked about this part. John, if you have any last comments about this part, feel free to go.
No, we're good. I think it well covered.
Mhm.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
John, what about this one?
Pricing. I tell you what, I'll make this one quick because I know we're running low on time, so I'll stick to the key, the meat of the issue.
Yeah.
Pricing really shouldn't be the question. It ought to be, what's the problem and what is the value proposition? And we talk a lot about in sales, the fact that pricing, because some of the cybersecurity services that we've all been involved with and have sold over the years have been largely commoditized. You've got lots of competition wherever you go. Throw a stick in a direction, you're going to hit a competitor, you're going to hit a competing solution. You guys are all familiar with that, people on this call, I'm sure. And ultimately, pricing, you'll find the quality with which you can solve the problem, the empathy with which you can utilize to explore that problem, the trust that you can develop with the prospect, in this case, a cybersecurity leader, to help them understand your product and your solutions with clarity and lucidity and honest and truthfulness. That will lead you to a value proposition. That value proposition typically is not always just about, I want the cheapest solution. It has to do with all of those things. Ultimately, you got to have a great product. You've got to lead with your product. Your product needs to lead that growth process and that curve. But the bottom line here when it comes to pricing is differentiate yourself based on all of the elements of effective cybersecurity selling that we've talked about today. Pricing will become the least of your worries. Pricing will take care of itself. As a matter of fact, I always have said often to our own people that pricing, you'll never lose a deal on pricing if you've done everything else right. And the reason is even if your pricing is more, if you've done everything else right, the customer will truly understand where your product fits, how it solves a problem. They've trusted you to run a very organized, good process. They'll typically come to you and say, you know what, we really like your solution. We prefer it, but I got a problem. My boss is indicating that they're not willing to pay 20% more. Is there anything you can do? And what we often find is we can. So pricing really isn't about slapping, it's not an auction where everybody just kind of throws their things in there. It's about doing all the things we've talked about in this webinar right, and you won't lose a deal on price.
Yeah. Next up, we have Ali talking about top cybersecurity services. Go ahead, Ali.
Yeah, I don't want to take your time a lot. I just want to let's explore some top cybersecurity services and discuss strategies for selling them effectively. First thing, penetration testing and red team exercises. I'm pretty sure most of our partners, they have a solution for that. So it is really important, simulating real world attacks to identify vulnerabilities is critical. Highlight the benefits of uncovering critical zero-day vulnerabilities in a client's web application. And then use cases where penetrating testing help they prevent breaches by identify weakness before attackers could exploit them. So that is why timing is really important when it comes to the penetration testing and the red team exercises. What about the ransomware simulations? Testing an organizational readiness against ransomware attacks is vital, right? show how identify a weak backup system can help in strengthening recovery plans, and then provide some examples where ransomware simulation helps clients improve their defenses and responses strategies. Because when it comes to ransomware simulation, it is really, really important to have really good response strategies. What about the MDR and SOC services? As you know, the managed detection and response and security operations center services offer 24/7 threat monitoring and response, right? Because if you don't mention 24/7, they are not going to be able to purchase the platform or any service that you have. But discuss how real-time detection and mitigation of the data exploitation attempts can prevent data loss and protect sensitive information as well. Because timing, yes, it is really critical, but the real-time detection is mitigation capability is also really, really important. If I'm looking any MDR SOC services, this is the first thing that I need to check for the services that they are offering me. And then, of course, incident response and compromise assessment. Rapid response to security incidents is essential, right? So share some stories of containing breaches and then preventing further damage within hours of detections, because 1 second is really sensitive when it comes to the cyber side. So so that is why incident responses timing is the key point of it as well, and then emphasize the importance of through the investigation to understand the scope of and then the impact of the incidents as well. Last thing, which is the most important one, dark web monitoring services, which we already offered you guys. So monitoring dark web forums for leaked credentials or sensitive information can provide early warnings. We're saying it again. Early warning alarm system is the key point of the dark web monitoring services. And then you can use some examples where dark web monitoring alerted the clients to compromise employee accounts before they were exploited. So yeah, this is all from my side. But now I will open the floor for the questions. Feel free to ask anything about the topics that we covered today with John and then Brock. So yeah, time to ask questions, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. We have time for a couple of questions. In the meantime, we'll briefly talk about this part with John, using free services to inspire customers. John,
Sure.
why don't you kick us off on this one real quick? And in the meantime, people can type in some questions on the chat. We'll have
Yeah.
time for one or two of them real
You
quick.
got it. This could be something people on this call may want to learn more about as a follow-up to this webinar. What we've talked a lot about kind of this nature, this emergent nature of external threats and how you can utilize tools to help your clients better respond to those in the earliest stages of the cyber kill chain. It turns out those same tools are really valuable for generating top of funnel leads and selling to your customers and being able to bring them value throughout the entire sales process. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. You can leverage threat intelligence reports and a lot of free tools, I might add, to get information on dark web news, incident reports. You get vertical industry reports, supply chain attacks that have occurred recently that may have an impact on your customers, whether it be in healthcare, finance, manufacturing. What's recently we're finding is a lot in logistics, air, freight, and things of that nature. You can use this also to find stolen databases, known fraud methods. There's other things that as you're going into sales situations, use cyber threat intelligence searches. And what Ali had shown you a few minutes ago is threat hunting capabilities. And you can investigate findings about your prospects and customers, and then help them to understand how you can solve those problems for them, whether for any of the portfolio solutions that you provide. And we have a whole host of free tools that no questions asked, no strings attached, that we welcome you all to utilize as well for both prospecting, meeting preparation, and obviously solution delivery. That's something we believe in, and we're happy to share those tools with you.
Let me scan it.
John. Thank you.
Let me scan it.
Yeah, go ahead. It works. Yeah, this is our free version for everyone who wants to try out the platform, see for yourself if you haven't already. So you already might have access, you might be using it, but if you don't have, feel free to use that one.
I think we wore them out. I don't see any questions coming through. I think we may have.
I think so too. Yeah, this part, real quick, I'll talk about as a MSSP or a partner, you're able to cross-sell with Socrator using different kind of services. So we position ourselves as a revenue generator, and we enable partners, MSSPs, to sell more of their services. And while you don't make that much money directly from Socrator, you can do even more selling your own services, like SOC, EDR, XDR, and all that stuff. So this is how we position ourselves. We are not just another vendor you have to sell. We are a revenue generator for our partners. This is how we see ourselves in, and that's why we call ourselves partner first. We offer a lot of benefits for our partners, as you can see here. And if you are not already our partner, I invite everyone to apply right over here with the QR code. I'll just leave it on for like 30 seconds or so. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, John, or Ali directly about the webinar, about the partnership program. And the form will directly lead you to our process. Once you apply, we'll evaluate your application. And if you are good to go, you'll become a Socrator partner and start your journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
One question came through. Yeah, one question came through. I thought we might hit it. Ali, you and I can do this together. It says, I'll read the question in case everybody can't see it. Does Socrator also offer services to assist customers with implementing mitigation or remediation measures if they are exposed to vulnerabilities, phishing, etc.? Sometimes even the product provides sophisticated insights and visibility. Some customers may struggle with carrying out mitigation or remediation on their own. Great question. It comes from Suma. Absolutely. It's one of the things that's important when you think about it is the closed loop nature of cyber threat intelligence. It's one thing to say, hey, you have a problem. It's another thing to say, hey, here's a tool, take care of this problem. And in the cases, what we most often do are two really forms of what I'll call, there was really three forms of remediation. One is we do in C2, what we call in-platform advice. It's associated with every single alert. This is the alert. This is the nature of it. This is what we recommend you do about it. So that's one form. The second form is more proactive in the sense that we have found a impersonating domain that looks suspicious, and it looks as if it's being utilized to phish or otherwise, gather information illicitly. We can take it down. It's simply a button in the platform, or it's a call in an API that you just press that button, we'll take it down. And that's something that we do in-house, and we do really well. I would offer better than anybody else in the world. And then the third way is do what we call black market data acquisition. I'd mentioned that story earlier in the webinar about, yes, and I should mention, I'm sorry, takedowns also apply to social media. And unknown, that was a question that just came in. So yes, impersonating domains, as well as social media, those can all be taken down. Speed of the takedown largely depends on the hosting provider. Some are fast, some are slow. The good thing about Socrator is we have a high level of reputation with all of the providers around the globe because we've been doing it for so long, and we typically can, we're trustworthy, in other words. So we're a trusted resource for takedown activity, and we can usually get them affected very quickly. We do provide unlimited takedown. It's rare. Takedowns do cost money, and they do cost, there's a price point associated with it. What we typically do is with all of our licensing schemas, we provide a number of takedowns that are just integrated. So no questions asked. You can always top them off in the form of credits. And that's both for takedowns as well as the third one I was going to mention quickly is data acquisition services. If we find something for sale on a marketplace and it appears to have assets associated with one of our customers, again, single mouse click, we'll engage our analyst network and we will go acquire those assets and bring them back to the rightful owner so that those threats can be mitigated and they get a quick sense of what they have and hopefully identify how they got in. Ali mentioned earlier, invariably, it seems lately, the common theme is stealerware variant of malware is typically how it's happening these days, and they're going undetected. The client finds out when it hits a black market, not when it was when that information was stolen.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. I know we are overboard with the time. I'll hope to see all of you in our next partner webinar and next summit in the next month. If you have any questions, as I said, feel free to reach us on LinkedIn or via email if you already have that access.
The middle guy looks handsome, bro, isn't it? The middle guy looks, isn't it?
Yeah, the guy in the middle sounds familiar. I'm not sure I don't know him from.
Yeah,
I see him a lot on the webinars. He talks about some technical stuff, so I'm familiar with it. Also, yeah, I know the guy on the left too. He's a friend of mine, all the way from Denver.
I am big time.
Yeah, big time. Thank you, team. Thank you, everyone.
thank you so
I'll see
much
you
for your
in the
time,
next
guys.
one. Have a good day.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much, everybody.
Guys, have a great week then. Bye bye.
Bye bye.